David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, back for another James Bond Generations, and I need the other generation to come on. This is Ellis Zaritsky. Welcome back to the show. And
Thanks.
Judging by, let's see that racket, judging by this nose and this TV watch, and by the way, even this banister jacket, which we're going to see in the film, you know what this means?
Yeah, you're gonna have to lose the nose,
gonna-
though, at the very least.
I'm going to have to lose
And
the
the
nose?
watch. I'll take the watch.
Oh my gosh, all right. I didn't realize I'm going to have to get down to the brass tacks for this. All right, I'm going to relinquish this. We are doing Octopussy. Of course we are. I'll even relinquish the jacket for this. But this is James Bond Generations, and this is going to be an interesting film because I know that we're going into this with this being one of your favorite films.
Yes, it is. It sure is.
It was something you saw when you were very young, you've revisited it, but it's been a while since you've seen it before.
Mm-hmm. But I have high expectations.
All right, speaking of high expectations, you know what we do here. We start off by saying, from a rating standpoint, what would you give this film going into it? So what would you give it?
I have to give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. All right.
No cat.
Wow, that's pretty good. All right, so unfortunately, I'm actually going in this with like 4, maybe 4.5, if I'm being generous. It's
You gotta work on your backhand.
yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm gonna wind up looking like this guy if Ellis has his way, but maybe not. Maybe not. Let's see if my appreciation grows. And by the way, when we say generations, I am 52 years old, and you are 31, 29, 26, 24.
Yeah.
Dad knows his
I
birthdays.
think.
Yeah, well, we don't have evidence.
We don't know.
That is true. All right, so 24 and 52. Let's see at the end and during this movie if there's any generational differences between our opinions.
Let us see.
That's the whole premise. Should we
Let
go
us
watch?
watch.
Should we go watch the film?
Let's do it.
We'll be back.
Well, it's a small world. You're a Toro too.
Okay, so we just saw the pre-title sequence. What did you think of it?
Awesome.
Did you like
so
it?
cool.
You made mention that it actually visually looked better than Moonraker.
Even though it's just a few years apart, I mean, the scene where he's flying through in the little jet,
Mhm.
which is just so cool, by the way. Even like the background images look like a lot clearer and a lot more realistic. Even so, it's just a few years apart from Moonraker.
I agree. All right, let's watch the rest of it.
Very rare. This one contains a model of the Imperial State Coach.
Top marks, 007.
Thank you, sir.
And another 5 in Czechoslovakia. In support
Czechoslovakia.
on the Russian western border are 60 divisions, including 22 tank divisions.
I love that was the musical code, though, to get his attention.
It's a charming tune. You do take English money.
Only gold sovereigns. Please.
That's a little from Russia with Love joke,
Special
too.
expediter, Universal Exports. Well,
You need a great deal of luck to get out of this. Oh, luck. But then I shall use player's privilege and use your lucky dice.
What?
It's all in the wrist. Double sixes.
He didn't even look down.
200,000
Cheaters.
rupees.
Mm-hmm.
Big check.
It's a lot of money.
I prefer cash.
Oh, man. Just pissing him off.
Get it cashed for him.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what did you think of the tuk-tuk escape?
It was great, except for the micro moments of racism thrown in there. But other than that, great.
What did you notice? You noticed there was a mixed crowd, so to speak, for India?
I don't know if this was just me, but I could have sworn I saw a lot of like white people in makeup, and
I think a lot of the stunt people for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely like some people in the background. I was like, that is not their natural skin tone.
No, there were some fun moments. It was a pretty cool action scene.
Yeah.
Overall. I kind of want a tuk-tuk now.
I would love a tuk-tuk, but only if you could do...
Yeah, you got to do the wheelie. Yeah. I'm going to look on eBay. And you said the bluster gun that the bad guy was using, not practical.
No, did he even fire it?
He fired it once and it hit the back of the seat, but it was so precise.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's a scatter gun, so that would have probably hit mostly the crowd.
Right, yeah, I don't think... And he would have had to have been really close to even get what he got.
We're being technical. That's okay.
TV. Very handy.
I can't remember the last time I saw this movie, but I have vivid memories of
Perfect image, Jim.
The Q scene?
Really, 007?
No, like all like up to
Look, I haven't.
He likes to Roger more than most.
How old is
I need
this
a
actress?
refilling.
This actress is probably in her 20s here. Well, he's only 56. Is that it?
Nasty.
Get some more.
Don't bother. We'll make yours a loving cup.
That's a good idea. Forgive my curiosity, but what is that?
That's my little octopus.
Wow, you remember this really well.
Just that line is awful.
One of our specialities. Stuffed sheep's head.
It's odd.
What's that soon?
When I'm stared at, I seem to lose my appetite.
Pop. I love the sound. I wonder if that's an egg or marshmallow or something.
Sounds like an egg.
See, I feel like if he just stayed there and didn't move, he would have been fine.
Where would those carcasses go in there?
Just down the ditch.
Oh.
So,
The sport commence.
yeah, this part's crazy.
So, they using real elephants here?
Yes, those are real elephants. That's a real tiger.
Well, that, yeah.
But
That's so unbelievably fake.
this is exactly why you want a safari suit, though, for these occasions.
Sounds like a dinosaur.
Don otro seguirlo. Chao. Anymore. Aquí están ustedes, capítulo.
Sit.
He is the Tiger King. cringeworthy.
That was great.
Awesome. Okay, so we just saw the Manhunt. What did you think of the Jungle Manhunt?
So like so many moments, so many horribly good moments.
This is the campiness, though, right? Of Roger Moore.
Yeah, but you said at one point they're just throwing everything at him, and they really were. I mean, tigers.
Can you name everything?
Tigers, elephants, leech. I want to say alligator
Or crocodile, one of those two.
Crocodile. Gosh, what else was there?
He did a Tarzan yell.
He did a Tarzan. He told the tiger to sit.
And it sat.
Yeah. It laid down.
There was a snake.
Snake. Yeah, that's right. But, geez, I mean, they had to get all of these trained animals, and there was a ton of scenes where they had, these huge guys climbing on top of these elephants. I mean, it's pretty bad.
Pretty bad, yeah.
That's like...
Elephant riding is a no bueno nowadays.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it should, especially back then, I mean, they shouldn't have been putting multiple people on them. And, like, these huge basket,
I know.
things. Something from Lord of the Rings. Just not right.
Oh my gosh, it did look like that. All right, we'll continue.
इसे भी खत्म करना है.
So you went into business for yourself.
What? His pants?
But I needed an organization, so I revived the old Octopus.
It was so close.
Well then, where did you...
Is it higher than his pants in Moonraker?
I think so. Look around like that.
I think he's trying to win her over with a kiss. Not a good technique? Or the fact that she's falling for it?
Mushing his face.
It's too late. You can stop it at the border.
Oh man. Shot in the head. It's kind of violent for James Bond. Oh yeah. Styling.
Hey, is anyone else in handcuffs? He's out. Take us out of here.
I don't know. Nice. Told you the elephant's a hero.
I trust you can handle it.
Do you know how long it takes to fill up a hot air?
Well, then you can.
Yeah.
That's a cool outfit.
That's the jacket I was wearing. Yeah, it is a cool outfit. It's very Bond. This was before Tom Cruise did that. All right, movies put away, done watching it. Overall, you just kind of like taking it all in. How long has it been, by the way, since you've seen that movie?
I have no idea, but for some reason, half of it was extremely familiar, and then the other half, I was like, I don't remember that at all.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay. What was the part that didn't seem familiar to you?
I don't recall there being and this is such a small detail, but we were talking about this so much afterward. I didn't realize how many animals were in it. and I don't know if that's just because I just finished Tiger King, but it's so obvious that there are so many animals that are just being treated like objects.
I
I
remember
have no better way to put it.
But you were vocal. I remember when I think I was too a little bit when you saw the cub being like pet
Oh, yeah,
at the
well, that
circus at the
was-
end,
yeah.
and also the elephants. They had people standing on their heads.
Yeah, there were a ton of scenes with the elephants being just weighed down by multiple people.
Yeah.
And like these huge basket crate things that had to have weighed at least like 3 people. So
There were a ton of animals. There were horses and there exotic animals. There were 2
Snakes.
chimpanzees.
yeah, there were a lot of chimpies.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the film. Pre-title sequence we already talked about. We really liked it. What did you think of the song itself, the title song?
The song
All-time high.
I was not impressed with. That is something that I do remember. I know that song. I'm familiar with it. I really do like the opening scene though because it's just very classic Bond. I really like the different texture, like layovers and all the shadow dancing and things like that. It was very, typical Bond, and I liked it. Not too much thrown in there.
Yeah, and I think for me it was an improvement on Moonraker because I didn't like Moonraker the song, and I didn't like the visuals. The visuals, at least, were like you said, very very Bondish. There were some where I was like, "What is he doing?" He's like swinging her around, and that was and I think you didn't like some of the freeze frames, like the women just all of a sudden freeze framing in the title song.
There were a lot of parts where like I mean you could tell it was like motion capture
Yeah.
most of them.
Yes.
But yeah, they would just kind of freeze on one frame and I'm like, okay. I mean it was artistic, so I can let that slide.
You can let it slide. I thought the whole. So one thing I did notice overall with Octopussy is this is a better film for me this time around because Roger Moore and Bond in this was definitely more like a spy than an action hero. I felt like he did a lot of deduction. I felt like even him figuring out the fact that if he goes to this auction and he bids on it and exchanges the egg, that if it's a fake, the bad guy's not going to call attention to it. Like that's kind of, intrigue and using his brains as opposed to just blowing things up.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I think that I like this one probably the most out of any of the Roger Moore films, just because
It's your favorite, right?
it's probably my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is my favorite,
Yeah.
I guess. Overall, it is my favorite because Roger Moore is my favorite Bond, and this is my favorite Roger Moore film. So, but yeah, I have to agree. He really brought out like all the stops. In this one, he was all sides of Bond, not just that one arrogant side, not just action side, not just gadget side.
Yeah.
He didn't overuse his gadgets. He melted those bars.
That's true.
when
Although
he
the
needed
bar
to.
looked like it was rubber when he was.
Yeah, that was way too obvious.
There are a couple of like little consistency mistakes there, but you're almost like with the Roger Moore movies, you want to forgive them. But one thing they didn't skimp on is the location jumping, the globe trotting that he did. Like I remember I heard you like go like whoa, like when he went to India and you see that panoramic view.
It was so colorful, and all of the extras were wearing like these beautiful like traditional like garments and things like that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I actually really like that part. And they've done it in other Bond films where it's not done so gracefully. I mean, not that this was as graceful as it could be.
Right.
There were definitely like a lot of, for lack of a better term, I mean, it was just straight up racist. Like there were a lot of points
the India.
where it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
like
mentioned that. Yeah.
Bond is not the most woke person.
Like when he says, gives him the money and says, "This will keep you in
Yeah,
curry
that's-
for a year."
Yeah, that was really bad.
You'd never get away with that nowadays, would you?
I mean, I'm sure people get away with that daily, but they
But in a
shouldn't.
movie, it'd be like petitioned and banned.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it should be broadcasted out there.
No,
Sure.
I got it. Well, all right. So let's talk about that because he's being chased by bad guys. There's a lot of bad guy action in here. There's henchmen. I thought there was kind of like a funnel appreciation of bad guys. Meaning, I thought the Russians were like over the top Russian. They even had a guy with the big eyebrows, and of course the main baddie Russian was like they are decadent in the West, and then all of a sudden you have Kamal Khan, who's like kind of swarmy. I kind of liked him, and then you had this like crazy henchman. But what did you think of the bad guys in the movie? Did they stack up?
I thought the bad guys were okay. A lot of the time they were just kind of just backstabbing each other constantly, and it was hard to keep up with like, oh, who's actually the bad guy, who's just like this annoying dude that uses loaded dice.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and I think that the henchman that crushes the dice,
Yeah.
I think he could have been a little bit better. Like he needed some sort of a personality because he was in it a lot. Like a lot. I think more so than the main villains. He was kind of like the Jaws of this movie, and he was just totally like had no personality whatsoever.
He was. That's a good point because he was kind of mixer of Jaws, which I know we really like, and Oddjob, which Oddjob has its own like scariness to him. He wasn't kind of jokey, but this thing almost made him kind of the brunt of a lot of jokes, which I thought was kind of fun. But all right. Octopussy. I mean, Octopussy literally is the main character. They have, used to be Goldfinger, but now it's a woman. What did you think of her acting, her portrayal, and the character?
I thought her acting was better than some of the other Bond girls that we've seen in the past.
Holly Goodhead?
Yeah, for example. I really like this character. I remember when I watched it when I was much, much, much younger, I loved her. And for some reason back then, I remember her being like really cool and like kind of badass. But watching it now and seeing all of these other films where they do the main character right, and by main character I mean female main character right, like Hunger Games or any of like some of the Marvel films, they do it right. But watching this, I was kind of taken back. I was like, I don't remember her being like kind of lame,
kind of cream puffy.
Kind of lame.
Yeah, she just kind of gets smacked around a lot by Bond, by the henchmen.
Yeah, and she doesn't really think things through. There were a lot of times where she's like, I'm just gonna hit this huge dude, and like, I wouldn't try that. I don't know what you're doing.
You actually said during the movie, you're like, what's the plan?
Yeah, what's the plan? What's her plan? She never had a plan in mind. She was always like one step behind everybody.
Right.
And I was kind of disappointed because in my memory, I remember her being like kind of badass. But as it turns out, not surprised with this kind of old-fashioned writing, she wasn't.
And it's her, I hate to categorize it like this, but it's a Roger Moore film. So they wrote it, to your point, they wrote it so all these women, young and old, are like falling over each other. I mean, you still have that in this film. I mean, you kept kind of pointing out like, oh my gosh, the Indian woman who shows him to his room says, can I get anything for you? Anything at all? And he's like, maybe later. Like, he's like pushing them off with a stick. So it's interesting, even with Octopussy, who you think is going to make almost like an equal of Bond. She just needs to be like whipped around and kissed really hard.
Yeah,
and she's like, I'm in.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that, and I don't think I've ever liked the way that Bond has treated any female character.
Any of the Bonds?
Any of these movies?
Really?
I can't. No, not even Craig. Honestly. Like,
what about On Her Majesty's Secret Service with Lazenby and the one he marries?
In so long that I just don't.
You might like the way he treats. Although he goes through a lot of women, and then eventually gets to her. So maybe you wouldn't even like that.
No, probably not. I think I just it's hard to see past the Bond trope that is treating women like objects because it's so blatantly obvious. Even in this film, which again, from my adolescent memory, I remember her Octopussy and all of her like girl gang kicking some butt.
Which they did,
kinda, and then they totally got like beat up just the same. So I don't know. It was, and they're used way later in the film, which I didn't realize. I thought for some reason they were used like a number of times.
Oh, okay. Like they were this fighting force throughout.
But all of a sudden they just know, kung fu towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
Even so, at the beginning, they were like...
There's, in the Bond community, there's a trope that people call Loverboy Bond. And it's the whole, there's Sneaky Bond, there's Loverboy Bond, but Loverboy Bond is the whole idea of, a lot of the fans want Bond to be this, a little bit misogynistic lover boy. Like he goes around from, from petal to petal, from flower to flower. And even in the Craig films, a lot of them say he doesn't do that enough. Like they harken back to that Roger Moore time. So I think that we finally found maybe a generational gap there where in some generations, your generation is probably more enlightened. I'll say to understand that's probably a no-go in the real world.
I mean, I'm cool with polyamory, the idea of polyamory, but I just feel like
wait, what's
for
that?
some of these...
Was that multiple women? Is that like polygamy?
Well, yeah, like Bond is basically just polyamorous. He's just going around. He doesn't really care. But at the same time, he's still romantic with these women.
Right.
So otherwise, he would just kind of like throw them to the side, which some Roger Moore kind of does. But for Craig, I feel like it's more romanticized as
he has these relationships, and
them.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And in Quantum of Solace, he actually doesn't sleep with the main Bond girl. He sleeps with the one that does get killed and covered in oil.
Shock.
Damn it, I thought there was one where he didn't do that. All right, so plot. Overall plot. There's a lot of spy and intrigue and tons of chase scenes in this. What did you think of the overall plot of the film?
I liked it. I liked the plot. It was a little all over the place, but we need those elements to really spice it up. Throw a little black pepper. Don't make it too spicy.
Wow.
But, I love this film. I can't give it too much hate.
All right. So based on that, you had said to me, what did you give this, an 8 out of 10 initially?
Going into it, I gave it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, that's
yes.
right.
Yeah.
And what do you give it now coming out of it?
I'd probably give it a 7.5. I'm knocking some points back for animal abuse.
Animal and women abuse?
and women abuse. And yeah. That's it, though. I mean, other than that, great movie.
It's a great movie, yeah. All right, so I went into this, I have to say, I enjoyed this film much better than I thought. I went into it thinking I was probably going to give it about a 4.5 out of 10. I'm actually going to give it a solid 7.
Yeah, so we're right on.
We're right on par with that, and I've got to tell you that I probably almost halfway through, I'm like, this is a good, solid Bond film. It's got all the Bond tropes I'm looking for. Roger Moore's great in this. I mean, 56-year-old. You actually said he looked younger.
I thought he was in his late 40s.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
It's interesting, too, because when we get to View to a Kill, I mean, you've seen it, so I almost feel like he aged very rapidly, or they went with even Bond, younger Bond girl, so I don't know. But I do think he did a great job. It was very Roger Moore-ish, even the whole sit, and the Tarzan yell had those Roger Moore moments. But I actually wound up appreciating him more this time.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I have to say. All right, well that wraps up Octopussy. We'll put another movie in the jukebox and do this. But thank you so much for doing this with me. Oh, the COVID. Now I know what this is. It's the COVID bump. So this has been Ellis Zaritsky and David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience, and we'll see you all real soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.